Hey there, I'm Jesse Hall, and I'm your host for Business Elite Brevard Edition, the podcast that brings you all of the influencers, innovators, and industry leaders from right here on the Space Coast. And welcome. It's a beautiful Sunday evening here from Space Coast Podcast Studios. This is Business Elite Brevard Edition, and I am your host, Jesse Hall. Welcome all. So if you're tuning in on Facebook, and we go live on Facebook pretty often when we broadcast this podcast. So if you're listening after the fact, then certainly try to make sure you like us on Facebook, and then you'll get the notifications. And then when we go live, you could join us here live behind the scenes as we record every podcast and see, again, what's going on in the studio. We have an opportunity for you to put in some comments. So if you have any questions regarding the show at any time, go ahead and put those in there, and we'll probably go ahead and have a look at it and entertain your questions and comments. With me in the studio, I have Jim Frazier with Grimaldi Candy Company. Now, Jim has been in the chocolate business for a long time, and he's going to explore more of that. But first, as with every episode, we just ask that you share the stream if you're watching live, and of course, if this is your first time listening to us, welcome. Make sure you give us a big like, and we also have a Instagram handle as well, Space Coast Podcast there, so you can watch again more of the behind the scenes and other things that are happening here in Brevard County. So with that, I want to give a big warm welcome to Jim. Welcome, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jesse.
So I'm a big fan of chocolate. I think most of our listeners are big fans of chocolate. And we're gonna learn where your passion came from. But I think in order to kind of learn about that, let's discover where exactly the Jim brand happened. Where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And I spent, went through high school, went through college there, and then I went off of my career. But I've spent my entire career in the food industry, and primarily most of it in the chocolate industry.
And were you inspired by Willy Wonka?
You know what? I don't think I was. My father gave me some advice early on in my life and said, you want to do one of two things, go into food or pharmaceutical. People are always going to eat, and sorry to say, they're always going to be sick.
Yeah.
So, I took the route of the food industry.
Great. So, were you always a good student growing up?
I was, let's say I was an okay student.
Okay.
I love sports, and, I excelled in that. And as I got older, I became much better at being a student, yes.
Did you play sports growing up?
Yes, I did. Baseball, football, wrestling, and what have you. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you got a good amount of discipline earlier. Learned to be a team player as well. With those team sports.
Absolutely.
I'm very grateful for having been in team sports as well growing up. It really helps you, especially in someone of your position, being able to work with others is what you need to happen. So talk about your education. Were you always a good student? Did you get to?
So I went to University of Cincinnati and went through there and you left there and started right out in my career.
Okay.
And my first job was with the Ralston Purina Company, the cereal division in Cincinnati, Ohio. My father had worked there. He was an engineer there for 36 years, and so I had a little bit of help getting in there. And shortly after I got there, and I was doing the 7-day-a-week, 12-hour-a-day thing, and I started getting that entrepreneurial spirit. So I spent a number of years there at Ralston, and then I went and took a couple different jobs, building sugar companies and out in the middle of the country. And then I had the opportunity to get in chocolate, and that's kind of where my what we call my Willy Wonka experience.
Sure.
People like to call it. I ended up in Michigan.
Okay.
And I spent almost 14 years up in Michigan building a company up there and building them into one of the largest private label chocolate manufacturers in the United States. So what that meant is if you went into like every major retailer in the U.S., big box, grocery, whatever it might be,
right,
and you went down the candy aisle, whether it be a Walmart or it be a Kroger or a Safeway or even a Publix, you went down that aisle and you seen their brand of chocolates, whether chocolate, raisins, Delta peanuts, malted milk balls. There's a good probability it was coming out of GKI Foods up in Michigan.
Fascinating. So you stayed up in that Rust Belt area between Ohio and Michigan for most of your career and upbringing, it seems like.
That is correct. Yes, I spent
Right.
a majority of my career, in the Ohio and the Michigan region. Like I said, I spent 14 years in Michigan, and then my wife, who's from California, didn't like the winters, so I humored her and moved her to Chicago. So that didn't go over real well.
Right.
And then I spent a number of years in Chicago, and I don't know if you remember that one snowstorm about 8-9 years ago, where people were actually getting their cars stuck on Lakeshore Drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
My wife told me at that time, she said, you know what, I can't keep doing these winters. And she said, how about if we move south? I thought, well, you know what, I traveled all the time. As long as I was, near a major airport, I was okay. Straight to Florida. So, we moved to we live in Merritt Island, and beautiful place to live. We're very fortunate to live where we live. But the first couple of years, I was still working in Chicago. So every Thursday, regardless of where I was at,
Right.
I would fly to Florida, and spend the weekend. And every Sunday, I would fly back to wherever I was needed to be at. And one weekend, I was down here in Florida, and we were driving down US 1, and I looked over and I seen the Grimaldi sign. I thought, I just became curious. So I, started searching, and doing a little bit of investigation. I sent an email, just a blind email to the website, telling whoever was going to read it who I was and what I've done in my career. A couple days later, the owner calls me and says, hey, Jim, I don't know what you want to do. I don't know what I want to do. Let's go have a cup of coffee and we'll talk about it. So about 2 weeks later, we finally connected, and we worked out to where I would come down and run the company, then over a period of time buy it. So I came down to Florida full time, and in October 2014, we purchased Grimaldi.
So how long were you? Well, I want to kind of back up because we skipped over Michigan and
Sure.
and your family. You're building your family. You met your wife in Michigan? She again hated the winters. Did you guys have any kids?
So both of us were married before.
Okay.
So I have 3 sons and a daughter, and my wife has a son. He actually lives in Tampa. My my daughter lives in Iowa, and my 3 sons live in Ohio.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
an extended family all over the
Exactly.
nation.
Exactly.
Very cool. So you guys are empty nesters.
We are.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Tell us about that first job in Michigan, building that company. You said, you mentioned, how you really increased that revenue. Explain for somebody who doesn't know the food industry, how does somebody just start to make a 200%, 300% growth? What does it take?
So, and that's a very interesting question because, when I first went up there, I had no chocolate knowledge at that time at all.
Okay.
I had food industry knowledge. And one thing about Ralston Purina, what they did is they sent me to every food school that I would bring to them, say, hey, I want to go to an AIB school. Here, I want to do this. I want to go to this food safety school. And they let me. So when I had a tremendous amount of food knowledge, not so much experience, but I had a lot of knowledge through the manufacturing, formulation, sanitation, food safety, all those things I developed with a deep, amount of knowledge in there. So when I had the opportunity to go up to Michigan, I went up there under the basis that, okay, you've got a food company here.
Right.
Here's what you do well. And I took what they were already doing well, and I entered into certain aspects of the market, large retail.
Okay.
One of the first large accounts we had, we became the private label manufacturer for Walgreens across the entire country.
Well, that's pretty huge.
Yes, and actually it's kind of neat how you go about that.
Yeah.
Is that you literally sit in front of a computer and you're bidding against other companies. And every time you bid, that bid is good for 1 minute.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's just like if we were bidding on, say, chocolate raisins,
Right.
and you bid a certain price for it, then your competitors have 60 seconds to either type in a new price, or if it doesn't, the time elapses, you're awarded that product. Now you have to win the majority of all those products in order to get the bid. So you're sitting there and you got sweat running down your head. You're typing. It's like, well, should I do this? Should I do that? So at the end, we catapulted the company forward by getting that account. That was our first real big account. And then, it just kind of went from there. Then we started buying more equipment. We started expanding our current space. We started bringing people in and, We had engineers. We had full maintenance crews. We had people that to really solidly build the infrastructure. You know, that's one thing they didn't have. They had the building. They didn't have the infrastructure, and they didn't have the technical minds behind it to do it. So when I came in there, that's what I did. I just took the business aspect of it, built the infrastructure out. Then we went out and started saying, okay, here's what we can do. Let's go capitalize on it. That's when we went and we, got the Walgreens private label account.
Amazing.
Then what the next thing we did is at that time, and this is many years ago, is that Walmart did not have their own great value chocolate line at the time. So, I got an appointment, went down there, crashed and burned first couple times, kept going back, and through persistence, they finally said, okay, this makes sense, let's do it. So I had to present in front of the buyers, then I had to present in front of the private label team, then I had to present again in front of the VPs. And at the end of the day, so now we got that account, the Walgreens account. It was huge. I mean, it was staggering. So now we have Walgreens. Now we have Walmart. Then we go out and we start working with the other big boxes, the groceries, the other large pharmacy chains out there. And before you know, we've got 100,000 square feet of manufacturing space under roof, and we're producing upwards of almost 100,000 pounds of product a day.
Repeat that.
100,000 pounds of chocolate a day. Now that's between, chocolate raisins, malted milk ball, bridge mix, peanut clusters. I mean, it was a huge, huge operation.
It sounds like one heck of an undertaking, and of course that's why you would see like I don't want to mention other brands, but you'll see manufactured with peanuts and other like tree nuts. And
exactly,
because it's really hard when you're dealing across a section of so many different varieties of ingredients. It's really hard to say, well, yeah, that was definitely, that's allergy free or allergen free, so it must be tough with a facility that big to be able to offer something that's allergy free.
Even then and even now with Grimaldi, even though we have lines that are isolated that don't utilize any type of nut, you always have the possibility of cross contamination.
Exactly.
Because they're different, allergen particles go airborne, and you just never know. So we make the blanket claim that it's processed in a facility that has nuts and different things like that.
Exactly. Yes. So you must have had to source the cocoa bean. I mean, did you guys get the cocoa powder? Like, at what point? Tell us about the manufacturing of chocolate for those who may not be familiar, and including me. I know there's a few regions, mostly South America, where they grow an abundance of cocoa. But you must have had multiple suppliers in order to get all of this.
We did. Yeah. We did. So just to answer your first question, if you have a globe and you look at the equator, that is where the majority of all your cocoa beans are grown is somewhere near the equator. Because of the environment, the conditions. Exactly. Now, it's very unique is that, we actually have classes over in Grimaldi. We have real cocoa pods. We have a lot of, students that'll come in and, they'll schedule a time they get to come in and dip. They do different, experiences. So we'll have, homeschool, or we'll have other classes of, 15, 20 kids come in. And we'll line up, and I'm going to answer your question in a second. But they get to dip strawberries and cherries and pretzel sticks and all types of things like that. But then but part of that is an education on chocolate. So I literally have a real cocoa pod there, and when you shake it, you can hear the cocoa nibs in it. So what happens is that there's a mechanical way that this thing is shucked. The pods come out. They roast the pods. And then if you can picture it going through this big, large oven, and these little cocoa nibs are being roasted. Then they go through a very large stainless steel roller. It crushes them. So what happens when it gets crushed, cocoa butter comes out. So that's where cocoa butter comes out. The shell keeps going, it gets ground, and that's where cocoa powder comes. Then there's a process called conching in the chocolate industry when they make chocolate, is where all these different ingredients go through these rollers. To where if you eat just a common candy bar, we're not going to say names, it doesn't matter, and you eat it, and sometimes it's not very smooth, maybe a little waxy, to where if you eat a very high quality chocolate, it's very smooth. And the only difference is how many times it goes through that conching machine, and it keeps breaking those particles down. So does it have a very smooth texture to where it probably went through that conching machine 7 times, or your common everyday candy bar you can buy it goes through one time. That's the only difference. And the only difference between milk chocolate and dark chocolate is when they roast those beans, they actually burn the bean. But when it goes through those crushing rollers, cocoa butter doesn't come out. It's called chocolate liquor. So and it's not alcohol. That's just a name they give it.
Okay.
So when they mix all the ingredients together and they put the chocolate liquor in, that's the difference between it. When you pick up a dark chocolate package, it'll say like 60% cocoa solid or 80% cocoa solid. The only difference is how much of that chocolate liquor is in there. And that's basically burnt cocoa beans when it turns into the paste. So when you eat it and you get that kind of like that bitter bite, it's because it's burnt cocoa beans. That's the only difference.
Fascinating. So, So milk chocolate isn't made with milk.
Milk chocolate is made with milk fat.
Milk fat, okay.
And it's made with cocoa butter and sugar and cocoa powder. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's now, did this one facility in Michigan that you helped build, were they getting the pods and doing this from processing all the way through, or were you getting it somewhat processed and then finishing it?
So we did not make the chocolate there. Okay. So what we had these big tall silos in this special room, and these silos would hold 60,000 pounds of chocolate, liquid chocolate.
Wow. We
had 3 of them. And if you see them on the road, it looks like a big gasoline truck.
Right.
It's a chocolate truck. It's filled with liquid chocolate. It's heated. And in the front of it is like this big squeegee. So as they back up and they're unloading, the squeegee is squeegeeing the side of this truck, unloading all of the milk chocolate. We would get between 1 to 2 trucks a day.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you weren't sourcing the pod or the bean or the nib or the powder. You were getting
the finished product.
The finished product. Okay.
Right.
And so for you as the end user of the manufacturing process, you were just pretty much just adding an ingredient like a pretzel or whatever may have you, and then packaging and then labeling and shipping.
That is correct. You have a couple different processes when you make chocolate. So we would take the liquid chocolate, the same way we do it now at Grimaldi. You have machines that are called enrobers.
Okay.
Basically, it's just a machine that covers the top, covers the bottom of a potato chip, and there's a blower on it that basically evacuates the extra chocolate off the top, then it goes through a cooling tunnel. Or we have a panning operation to where the liquid chocolate is transferred to another area of the plant and utilized to make chocolate raisins, chocolate peanuts, chocolate malt balls, almonds, or whatever it might be. The same process for milk chocolate, dark chocolate, or white chocolate.
Fascinating. So, personal question: what's your favorite chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate. How much would you say you consume on a weekly basis?
Myself?
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of like one of the things that when it's new, it's like a novelty. But I've been in it for so long. I know you always have to test. You have to test things. So I don't know. I'm not going to give you a number. I don't know.
All right. So
not a lot.
So do you wear the quality control badge anymore, or you let somebody else do that?
I think especially at Grimaldi, we are a very unique company where everybody takes a role and responsibility in all aspects of the company. Whether you're the machine operator, you're the feeder, you're the catcher, the packer, everybody's in quality control. We have people in quality, but we take great pride in that every step and aspect of the way we are checking to make sure that we are producing the highest quality product for our customers. Very cool. Well, I hope you guys are continuing to be intrigued as I am. Just seeing this volume of some of these facilities and how much they put out, and did you know that Walgreens had a white label chocolate? So these are pretty exciting things. And if you were, so I guess it was the turn of the millennium in 2000 that you got into this corporate role before you decided to go, I don't want to say rogue, but boutique, and started this thing. Is there anything you miss about the corporate world? I learned a lot in the corporate world. I was very fortunate and very blessed to be able to do what I've done. And it gave me the tools and the knowledge and the skill set that I needed to be able to go off into that entrepreneurial route. So is there anything I miss about it? Right. I don't say I miss it or don't miss it, but what I do enjoy now is that having more or less full control of the wheel. So we can develop things, we can build new things, we can come up with unique formulas without a lot of that large corporate red tape. Right. So when we go in and we say, hey, we want to do a butterscotch truffle. Okay, so we go in the kitchen and we start building that formulation. We start building that recipe. And believe me, every batch we make isn't great. Right. So we're always going back and trying to improve upon it. But I like where I'm at now. I live that corporate world. I wore the suit and tie, and now I get to do things that I have a passion for. I enjoy what I do. Yeah. I like to see when those mothers and fathers and kids come in and grandkids come in, and they want to tell me exactly how much they love those Grimaldi potato chips. So we're very fortunate to that. We're very blessed, and we have a great following here in Brevard County, and we're very fortunate, and again, appreciative of all of our customers.
Yeah, and we're going to get to a lot of what you do for the community, and we're going to get into that as well. But going back, so was the Chicago job was that more hands-on, or that was just probably like suit, tie, and behind a desk?
That was more of a suit and a tie, and on an airplane all the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there was the company I worked for. There is a company that had facilities in Chicago, Ohio, Texas, California, Mexico.
Wow.
So I did a lot of traveling at that time, which was one of the drivers to we ended up in Florida, but that was very, very corporate world there.
Yeah. Disclose for us what the title of what you did in Chicago.
I was senior VP of the Evans Food Group.
Senior VP, okay.
Yep.
So it took a lot of traveling. So you were just pretty much sending accounts at that time, building accounts?
So I was in charge of all operations and the entire sales team. So I would travel some days for, visiting different facilities, addressing challenges, monitoring progress, or I would find myself sitting down in Bentonville with one of the sales guys, one of the salespeople, presenting new products to Walmart or Minneapolis to Target or whomever it might be.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess I did give you quite an insight as to how, some of these things are modeled, for, you're talking like lots and lots of commerce. You're talking, big accounts. Was it ever intimidating? Did you ever feel like, you would walk into some meetings and not know if it was in the bag, or, did you have like a pre-meeting routine or anything else like that?
I can tell you early in my career, I would sit in those waiting rooms and wait, and I'd have a bead of sweat coming down my head. It's kind of like, the evolution of yourself becoming, new to it,
right,
to where you feel like you're actually good at it. So I always have a philosophy. I won't go into a meeting if I don't feel I have at least an 85% chance of winning.
Okay.
So if I feel that I'm not that prepared, or I don't have the right product mix, I don't have the right pricing, because, before you go into any meeting, you always do a lot of research. You talk with as many people as you can that's done business with that client. You try to understand what their trigger points are. Is it quality driven? Is it price driven? Is it, consumer, driven? Whatever it might be, the packaging size, different flavor profiles. So when you check all those boxes, and you can check those before you go into that meeting,
right?
You have a level of confidence when you go in there that you've checked all those boxes for that buyer that you're going to sit in front of, and you feel pretty good about winning and walking away with that account.
Fascinating. What would you tell say a junior executive coming up, and it doesn't have to be, but let's just pretend it's a food industry job, and they want to get away from maybe like managing the warehouse or the manufacturing or something of that effect. They're kind of right there on top of where everything happens. And they kind of want to get into that ivory tower of a position where, they don't even see chocolate or smell chocolate, but all they do is talk, a product and margins and all, that kind of thing. How would you suggest they get into that position to graduate like you did to a senior VP position?
So I think to answer that question, one of the things that I always did in the progression of my career, is I found ways to make myself unique. I found ways to be able to bring a new, unique proposition to the table, whether it's a formulation or a product or a way we produced it or a way of approaching a new potential client. So my advice would be find a way to make yourself unique and come with solutions. Figure out what the challenges are within your organization. Figure out where those holes are at and figure out a solution. Take it to your supervisor, to your, whomever it might be,
Sure.
and say, hey, you know what? I've got a solution to some of these issues we have, and here they are.
That came a little hot, but here's a good chance for us to go to break, Jim.
Sure.
And thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We're just going to take a quick pause, and can you believe it? Already about 30 minutes into the show.
Nice.
So we're halfway home, and we still have a lot of ground to cover. Again, getting through to from the start of your career, and now we're going to kind of close the back end of the show with Grimaldi Candy Company specifically. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Take care.
Listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Join us for the fresh, new For Your Best Self podcast with Drs. Anita Saluja and Rebecca Novo of Dermatology plus Plastic Surgery. We will reveal the facts about techniques, trends, products, and procedures to be your best self. The first and only podcast combining the synergy of aesthetic dermatology plus plastic surgery. Search For Your Best Self on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify.
Hey, this is Trisha Schmalhofer, hostess of BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics. This podcast is all about seeking knowledge, talking to experts, changing perspectives, channeling wisdom, and shifting consciousness. Listen as we invite a different badass guest each time from a variety of career fields who are living their purpose, spreading light, giving strength and hope, and changing lives every day. We stream live on Facebook, so like our page, interact with us, and watch the behind-the-scenes action. Find BAM, Badasses, Alchemists, and Mystics on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts under Space Coast Podcast Network. BAM!
All right, we're back. Oh my goodness, who loves chocolate? I see some of our live viewers here on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you're listening to after the fact, just know that you can watch all of our podcasts live. So make sure you go to Facebook and like Space Coast Podcast now, and that way you won't miss another show, and you could kind of join in the fun, ask some questions, offer some comments, and again, see what it looks like behind the scenes as we're recording live here. All right, so and once again, thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday night. I know you're a busy man. I think this is like your only night available. So I really appreciate you coming in and and offering this, because it's so nice to highlight all of the movers and shakers, business people, here on the Space Coast. And Jim, from what we've already gathered here in this first segment, it sounds like you didn't really take a sacrifice, but you chose to take all of this learning, all of this this big high profile kind of positioning and executiveship and things of that nature, and you chose Florida to just relax and be that entrepreneur that you always dreamed of being. What has changed for you since like dramatic changes from going to the high rise in Chicago and that kind of traveling kind of guy to now being able to work in flip flops and a t-shirt?
Well, there's probably a couple answers for that. Number
Right.
one, it doesn't snow here.
Right.
So that's a big plus. And also, I don't sit in traffic for 3.5, 4 hours a day
Amen.
either.
Amen.
So those two
Yeah.
by itself. And plus, I think my wife is very happy here, which is also very important. It's as far as, career-wise, yes, it wasn't a shock, but I came down here with the mindset of saying, you know what, I'm taking a great brand that's already, loved within, communities.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to take it and do more with it. So, when we came down here, I came down here just not to say, okay, we're going to sell to the stores
Right.
and into the community. I started looking outward. And part of that past experience and my knowledge of how to approach mass retail, we started doing business with Publix. Publix has been a tremendous account for us. We're very, very fortunate for that. And we've done a number of other large accounts throughout the United States. We have one now with a company out in Oregon, Bridgewell Agribusiness. They are the largest importer of dried mango slices in the United States.
Right.
I met this guy on LinkedIn. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. And I reach out to this guy's name is Randy. And I said, hey, my name's Jim Frazier, Grimaldi Candy Company. We do a lot of different things. We can enrobe, we can custom pack. So he sends me a case of these mangoes. He says, do something with them. So we worked back and forth and did a number of things. We ended up coming up with 3 different scenarios. People sometimes just like plain.
Yeah.
But then we also did a dark chocolate. But what's unique about this, we don't enrobe and cover it the whole thing. We just cover one side of the mango. So you can see the one side is covered in dark chocolate. You turn it over, you still see the mango. So I think that the overall optics of that is very appetizing to the customer.
Right.
Because they get to see the mango and they get to see the chocolate. Then we also do a chili seasoned one where, we spike a little bit with some jalapeno to where it's not overwhelmingly hot, but it's something that's like, wow, this is really good.
Right.
You got the texture, you got the taste, and that overall experience for the consumer is very, very good. So when we line these up, you have plain, you have dark chocolate, and you have the spicy. That really resonates very well with customers. And right now they're selling in all of the Safeways on the West Coast. They're also selling in H-E-B in Texas, and they're selling in Shaw supermarkets up on the East Coast. And we're continuing taking that into new markets as well, along with the Grimaldi products.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about your expansion and sourcing of unique ingredients. Now that you are boutique, you certainly don't have to play all the big boy rules. You could really be specific with where your chocolate comes from and some of these things. If I may say so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you could really just begin, besides just being your own boss, but really create something that, again, it is a little bit out of the box that you're not going to find from other chocolatiers or big house, brands that we all are familiar with. How does that feel? Kind of being able to have that ingenuity, get to the kitchen as you mentioned before, and start from the ground up with recipes.
Having that type of flexibility it's paramount, especially in a small company like this. But I've always believed in innovation and creativity will lead to success. And some of the products that we have created and we're selling to our loyal customers today came out of exactly that. We have this idea for this lemon truffle or a Java truffle or this caramel truffle or whatever it might be. Exactly what you just said is the evolution and the mindset of what we have at Grimaldi is we do take our flexibility and our ability to be able to pivot and go in any direction very quickly. But the innovation and creativity is really what I feel is the real unique ingredient at Grimaldi. And this is how we deem success is when we create a product and a customer buys it and the first thing we get a call back and they say, we absolutely love this new product. This is great. Yeah. And, we get Facebook comments. We get people that will just call us up and say, you know what, thank you for doing what you're doing. And, with that, and we've built a very solid team at Grimaldi. Our employees do a great, great job. They're very dedicated. They're dedicated not only to producing the products, but they're also dedicated with the same mindset of customer is first.
Right.
We supply the best high-quality product to the customer and offer the best customer service. That goes a long way. when you come into the stores and you get the sample and you have somebody walk you through the different products, explain the ingredients and explain the overall experience, the taste, the texture, and what you expect to get out of it. By the time these employees, explain this, it's almost like the customer's eating it. So, I mean, like I said, it goes a long way, and our employees do a very, very good job.
Well, we're gonna get into expansion in a little bit, but let's first bring people back to the first steps. What was it like to take an existing brand, and then you said you worked for the previous owner, and then you assumed it? Did the process go smooth? Is there anything you would change about that? What would you recommend to somebody who maybe is trying to get out of, like, say, their company? They're heading into retirement age or whatever that may have you, and they want to pass it off, but they want to keep the legacy. They want to keep the good product and everything that they've built up, the reputation in the community.
The previous owners were great. Very, very good people. They're local folks here. Very great to work with. They're just very good people.
Right.
And I believe what the previous owner's seeing is that taking the Grimaldi brand and handing it off somebody with my type of experience in the chocolate industry was a good fit.
Right.
We moved here. We became part of the community. So that it just became a good fit. So that transition went very well.
Right.
Again, we're very fortunate to get to know the previous owners. Again, they're very, very good people. And they were very helpful, and they're still very helpful, in different parts of the business.
So are you in the same manufacturing place that you started with? I mean, you assumed the manufacturing, all of the business, the employees. I'm sure you assumed the whole thing in one, lump package.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
They're on US 1 in Rockledge.
Right.
We have a 20,000 square foot facility.
Wow.
Where we produce all the chocolates, we warehouse, we pack, and we ship everything from that facility.
Right.
So everything Grimaldi comes from there, regardless if it's being shipped to California or to Texas or to New York. It all comes out of that facility. We also have the retail store that's attached to the front of that building.
Right.
And then we just recently opened up a new store over in the Avenues in Vieira.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that because how does a business know that it's ready to expand? We're just getting demands. Where customers just like, I can't go all the way to Rockledge. I need something more, near 95, where there's a lot of commuters, like the Avenues are right there off of 95. So, you can almost get that commuting traffic, where a lot of people from all around the county could get to easily. What made you decide that now is the time to expand?
So when you look at when you want to expand, you have to look at what is your processing capabilities? What are your capacities? And as you look at what you currently are doing versus if we continue to expand, start producing more products, start looking at other areas around Brevard County, we looked at the Avenues as being what we considered, we had the opportunity to make the next generation of Grimaldi. And what I mean, we're always going to keep the same recipes. We're always going to be producing those same, great Grimaldi products. But how can we take it and continue to enhance the customer's experience? And we found that opportunity in a facility over in Vieira. When you walk into that store over in Vieira, you immediately get, you look up and you see these large chandeliers. You see beautiful things on the wall. You immediately get to see our Grimaldi chips. But then you start looking around and you see some very unique giftable products. We buy locally, our honey, our soaps, and other things like that. So you get that unique experience, but you get a very, upscale you feel to it.
Right.
But then as you look around, you also see some of the history of Grimaldi. We have a depositor from the very beginning up by the front window. So people can see that, and, it's got to be 50, 60, 70 years old. I don't know. And then you walk a little further and you see a mixer, where we made caramels and creams and things like that. So it's a good blend of the next generation of, it's an upscale store. We're offering many more unique items, the same great potato chips and the pretzels, and all the truffles and things like that. But then, again, you get those unique giftables. You get that little flair, that sense of the history of Grimaldi as well. And that's very important. When we opened that store, we wanted people to come in and immediately say, wow, look at this.
Right.
But then also as they look around, it's still Grimaldi. But with those unique giftables and things like that.
And I think that's important. I think showrooms should offer a little bit about the product, a little bit about the history of the company, because it allows that consumer to kind of be involved. And they almost feel like, okay, well, I want to support you because now I know you so much, so much better. And then they really, for me as a consumer, when I see that as well, I almost feel like I'm being included. I'm being welcomed as someone in the family. I'm being thought of even before I even enter the door. That, if it's got a nice ambiance to it, and it's inviting, it's almost like you're inviting people who don't even know about you yet. It's like you're building something for them that they're going to feel comfortable in, as soon as they walk through that threshold of the doors, which I think is magical. And I would really recommend, for most businesses to maybe consider that, offer, why you do what you do, kind of thing. Tell a story.
So, and again, just kind of go back to, the Vieira store, is that, my wife Tricia has done a very good job with the team at Grimaldi on making it very inviting. So when you first walk into the store,
right,
you get a big blast of Grimaldi along the left-hand side. You get some of that unique equipment, from the history of Grimaldi there. But then you also, she set up these tables to where it almost guides you into the store and around it, to where you can walk around and you can shop. And it's very important to us that we took all those different, those thoughts and the understanding is that when the customer walks in, we want them to be invited. We wanted them to say, wow, look at this.
Right.
And feel almost propelled that, I want to go over here. I want to see this. I want to see that. And then when you walk straight back, you see our gold case with all the truffles and the caramels and all the haystacks and everything back there. And it just, optically, it's very inviting. And then when you walk in, you smell the chocolate. So you can't, that's a plus right there. But we definitely took the customer in full consideration in developing that store and making sure that they have an enhanced experience.
Right.
Obviously when they get their sample, they get, that chocolate. But then they get the smell, then they get some of the history. But then, there's a lot of unique things on the walls that are, very unique giftables. And it's all about the experience. And we do keep the customers and our loyal customers,
right,
they are first and foremost.
Yeah, and I'm going through my punch list because I have, so much to go over with you. And can you believe it? We only got about 15 minutes left. I would normally go to a break right now, but we're going to skip a break. So don't go anywhere, guys. I know some of you have been itching to get up and refresh that drink or what it may have you at your house. But we got to talk about some of these crazy things. You have a ghost chili truffle. Who inspired that, and how popular is that?
So you know what? That was actually a mistake one day.
Oh, really?
Yep. Somebody thought it was some type of sanding sugar, and it was ghost chili salt.
Oh, no.
And obviously we caught it. Didn't get out into the stores.
Right.
But then, my people started eating, and it's like, wow, taste this.
Right.
Then my wife Tricia, she said, this is really, really good. So now we have a ghost chili truffle, but we also have ghost chili on our potato chips.
Really?
You can buy this ghost chili sprinkled on milk chocolate, potato chips, or the dark chocolate. And these things are absolutely delicious.
How have I not found that yet?
It's unbelievable product. Unbelievable.
See, I'm learning things too.
It's great.
Now, you call yourself a candy company. You specialize mostly in chocolate. But besides like the caramels, what other kind of, you don't do a hard candy or anything, do you?
So we don't do any hard candies, but, we do chocolates, we do truffles, we do caramels, we do toffees, which is a hard candy.
Toffee, yeah.
Hard candy. And we actually have 97 different SKUs that we make.
90s. Wow, that's a lot of product.
That is absolutely a lot of product, yes.
Amazing. Now, you said you still have some goals. You're not finished with distribution. But what's it going to take for you to get to that next goal? You wouldn't really approach a Walgreens or a bigger chain store like that, or would you? And what would it take for you in that 20,000 square foot facility that you have now in order to complement that and make that something that's a reality?
So some of the reality things that we have done to continue to expand. In December, I was on Home Shopping Network.
You were?
Yeah, we were live on Home Shopping Network, and that was an opportunity by itself. Just preparing for that,
right.
We did very well on that. We're very fortunate to be slotted in right before Christmas.
Oh, nice.
I believe it was like on the 14th or 15th or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But we did very well with that. We're looking towards, working with the sister, the QVC. We also did, and I believe we were talking about it earlier, we're obviously with the current environment out there, but we a couple years ago we had a contract with a company that did all of the gifts for the movie studios.
Oh,
So out in Hollywood, every time there was a movie was completed,
right.
before everybody parted their ways, everybody, regardless if you were the main actor or actress or the guy sweeping the floor, everybody got something. So we ended up doing 12,000 boxes of potato chips. They wouldn't tell us which movie it was for or what have you,
Right.
but it was kind of neat to do that. And we have that as soon as everything gets rolling again. We have that as well to do that again. Those are type of accounts and type of business that we can quite frankly, to be honest with you, it's higher margin business for us.
Right.
In us being a unique chocolate company, we do have a lot of flexibility to be able to customize programs, but that's kind of our niche. Instead of going out and filling up a Walmart or something like that, we're better off, and it makes more sense for a company like us to do those unique set of that type of business, whether it's doing movie studios, doing the mangoes,
Right.
doing a home shopping network, and going out and hitting the gourmet markets and things like that.
Sure.
We do business with Green Turtle and Petty's over in Babcock.
Yeah, great.
Those are great client or customers for us as well. That's really our niche.
Right.
And that's where I see the growth is.
Okay.
Is that doing that type of unique business set? Am I ever going to be able to produce 100,000 pounds of product a day? Probably not.
Right.
But will I be able to compete on a scale of profitability with doing those type of unique accounts? Absolutely.
Well, if you could match that same production or lack of production, but still get those same results, well, that's magic in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why stress and have to get expand and big warehouses and that much more of labor and payroll when you can stay small and again build those relationships. I think that is the secret to success.
Absolutely.
Is doing what you do and know your market and just wow that market
and be the best you can in
Right.
that niche in that market. We want to be the best at making chocolate covered potato chips. We want
Right.
to be the best at making truffles. We want to be the best at making toffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put our products up against anybody else in the United States.
Wow. Well, that's those are some that's pretty big of you. I mean, for lack of a better term, to mention that because there are some big designer brand.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to mention them.
Yep.
But a couple of them also start with a G. But we won't go there. I want to talk about more. You mentioned the home shopping network and getting in front of some of these Hollywood studios for their wrap up parties. What other claim to fame would you say you've had as well?
I'm not so sure I would call this a claim to fame.
Right.
But we take a great role and responsibility in being good, community stewards. We believe in community.
Right.
So as much as I gauge, business success, I also gauge success on how well we are received
Right.
in the communities. My wife and I and Grimaldi, we think it is very important that companies give back. We believe in educating our young folks. We believe in supporting military personnel and their families as well. And we've done a lot over the last several years to do that.
Yeah.
My wife and I are both, very dedicated to, animals.
Yeah.
I was president of the Humane Society for a while, and I'm out of that now. But my wife is still on the board of the Humane Society, and we have 3 little rescue dogs in our house now, and a cat named Bella, and we won't talk about her because she'll probably be mad by the time I get home. But we really believe in being good community stewards, and that falls on a couple different categories of being good business partners with other businesses within Rockledge and in Brevard County, and also being open to make sure that we're available to help as needed as well.
And that's important, So tell us about what the legacy of Grimaldi is looking like. What do you want to leave for the for your community, for the county of Brevard, and maybe for your employees, for your customers. Where do you want to see Grimaldi go to and provide for? And what's that going to look like? Like, what's that magical scene? Will you know when you arrive at it? Have you been working towards it?
Well, I don't think there's an expiration date on the Grimaldi brand. I think that is going to live on for, past my lifetime and probably some others. I think that from the beginning to where it's at now, we've taken the approach that the customer is number one.
Right.
And we take great pride in producing high-quality products, and we take great pride in understanding what the customer wants. That we've always done very good at listening and taking feedback. So I don't see that changing 10 years, 20, 30, 50 years from now.
Wow.
I believe that same philosophy, the same recipes. There's no reason to change it.
Right.
People love it the way it is. Will we start producing new products and, developing, things like that? Absolutely. But those Grimaldi potato chips, I don't think there's an expiration date on it.
No, and you keep mentioning those, and I got to ask, and maybe you can't ask, but where do you source the potato chips from? Are you guys
A potato farmer.
Potato farmer? But are those an in-house potato chip?
So we have suppliers that we bring those in from.
Gotcha.
We also have suppliers for the chocolate.
Right.
We discussed earlier. But when we bring the chocolate in, we do, put the recipe for Grimaldi. So it's not just a normal chocolate.
Right.
We do things with it that we feel enhance the flavor and overall experience for the customer. But, those are proprietary things, and,
of course,
I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag right now.
No, we're not asking for that. I just wanted to know if it was an in-house potato chip, because I think we all agree that potato chips are really remarkable. And I suppose you would call those like your flagship or staple of a product. I mean, is that your number one bestseller?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
our milk chocolate and dark chocolate covered Grimaldi potato chips, that is a staple.
I know.
When somebody hears about the name Grimaldi,
right,
all you hear, I love those potato chips.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a staple. But when you come into our stores and you see all the different products that we do produce,
right,
we do a great amount of volume and all those other products as well. But the staple is the Grimaldi chocolate covered potato chips.
I mean, and just from speaking with you for the near close to an hour, Jim, you mention it because I see the pride in your eyes.
Absolutely.
Your expression when you say that, combination of words, chocolate covered potato chips. I mean, it does. It creates an arousal of just anticipation. Like, you just want that creamy, sweet, but salty and crunchy, texture combination, which I think is just so satisfying on so many levels.
Absolutely.
All right. So I also heard that some of your chips that we've been talking about have gotten to the Senate. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate. Rick Scott, when he was governor, actually visited Grimaldi a couple years ago, and since he's become senator, I think this is maybe the second time he's actually ordered our potato chips for the Senate, and he gave them out to all of his colleagues. But the last batch we actually sent an extra one to see if it could get over on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Oh, very cool.
We'll, I'm not sure if it did or not.
Right.
I'm sure somebody ate it, but hopefully it made it that far.
Exactly. Well, that's pretty cool. That's impressive.
Yeah, it's very cool.
That's impressive.
Very blessed and fortunate.
And I'm throwing my pen around. How about the last, as we're coming. Oh, thank you. As we're coming down to the end of the last few minutes, and this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you all for joining behind the scenes with us on Facebook, and of course all those who are listening after the fact. How about, and again, only because this is the climate we're in now. What changes would you say you've maybe had to make because of this COVID-19? And I really hope this is the last interview we have to mention it. But since it's come to where we're seeing now, people are told not to close all non-essentials. I'm sure it sounds like you're essential. I really hope that they suggest you're essential. But what does it mean now for as far as the showroom with offering samples? Have you seen a slowing in production or orders being made?
I think that the COVID-19 has affected us all,
right,
regardless of what industry you're in. And first and foremost, our prayers go out to all the families that have been affected by this. And that is, and again, first and foremost. So what we have done at Grimaldi is we've ramped up. We've always had a high level of sanitation quality,
right, but
what we've done now is we've ramped up to additional sanitizing, additional hand washing, additional cleaning.
Right. And
we've also taken the step that at the Rockledge facility, we have the option of curbside
Okay.
to where you can actually pull into the parking lot. We have a large sign out in the front, says open for business, has our phone number on it.
Perfect. Okay.
There's 2 lanes, lane number 1, lane number 2. You can pull in, you can call, place your order, give them your payment information. They'll bring the product out to you where you never have to get out of your car or engage with anybody there. You still have the option to come into the store. We have hand sanitizer available, and we're very closely monitoring how many people come in at a time to make sure that we're practicing the distance, the process and regulation.
Right.
But we're taking every precaution we can to protect our customers and our employees. And yes, it has affected our business.
Yeah.
We've obviously seen a slowing of people that are out and actually engaging in, coming in and buying chocolate. We do feel a great amount of support in the community. Facebook, phone calls, and, people are very appreciative that we are open. We're trying to do the very best we can to continue to supply our very loyal customers, these Grimaldi products. But in the same time, we're taking every step and precaution necessary to protect them and to protect our employees.
Yeah. So I'd imagine the showroom hours have probably been limited, but I bet you're seeing a little bit more of the shipping increase as we starting to see, through other manufacturers.
Yes, you can call the phone number to 321-638-0702, and you can place a shipping order.
Okay.
And the hours for the Rockledge location, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5:30.
Okay.
On Saturday, 10 to 5. We're closed on Sunday.
Okay.
But over in the avenues, we're only open from 12 to 5, Monday through Saturday right now. We're closing on Sunday just because, the business is slower.
Right. Yeah. Any other last words as we're coming down to the last 90 seconds? Any kind of thoughts or notes that maybe we didn't cover that you'd like to put out there?
No, the main thing is I just want to show a great appreciation for all of our loyal Grimaldi customers. Brevard County's been great, and we love being here. We love to see people come in and talk about when they were little kids. They would come in, now they're adults, and they have families. That means a lot to us. Right. So there is a great appreciation for all of our very loyal customers. And I also want to stay and say that I appreciate all of our Grimaldi employees. They go above and beyond every day to do the things that they do and to produce these products. And, I'm very appreciative of all of them as well.
All right, one last time, Jim. How do people make an order, whether it's curbside, shipping, or just get a hold of you to ask some questions? One more time.
So you can still come into our stores. You can call the 321-638-0702 number and place an order to where you can pick it up on curbside. Or you can just show up at the Rockledge location, pull into one of the 2 slots, call the number, give them your payment information.
Right.
Or you can go over to our Vieira store Monday through Saturday, 12 to 5. We can also do curbside over there. You just have to call in ahead of time.
Gotcha.
Even if you call the number in Rockledge, we can set it up for the Vieira.
Very good. And you have a website that people can maybe shop or maybe just browse your products?
So GrimaldiCandies.com.
Okay.
You can go on there. It also has all the phone numbers and addresses as well.
Perfect.
That website is under construction right now.
Okay.
So the only way you can get a shipping order is if you call
the
phone number I gave you and place that order that way. And we hope the website's up very soon.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Jim
you.
Frazier, Grimaldi Candy Company in the studio. We really hope you guys enjoy this episode of Business Elite Brevard Edition. Again, your host, Jesse Hall. Make sure you, if you haven't subscribed to Space Coast Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, or anywhere you could find our podcast, make sure you give us a follow so you don't miss any other episodes. And as always, here's to your success, and keep business fun. Keep business less business. Take care, guys.